Hello, I'm John Feldt. This is the midday Midwest flood update from Blue Water Outlook for Thursday, May 30th. I wanted to start off today's briefing describing the setup for the Midwest floods. We've had some very persistent type precipitation patterns that originated during the winter months and have continued into the spring. The areas in blue or the areas in green, especially the darker greens, indicate soil moisture that's well above normal. So any rain that falls over that area is going to be enhancing the runoff and get into rivers a lot quicker than would be normal for this time of year. So Iowa, parts of Missouri, and Illinois are very wet, and any rain that has fallen over that area is going to run off into rivers. Further to the west, you can see it's quite dry, and rain is needed in those areas. So over the past 30 days, the percent of normal, areas in that light blue are about 1.5 times normal. The dark blue is about 2 times normal precipitation. You'll even see some of the purple there, that's 3 times normal precipitation. So it's been very wet over parts of eastern Nebraska, almost all of Iowa, northern Missouri, and parts of Illinois in the recent past. And that's why this flood threat has set up, is because more rain has fallen over that region in the recent days. Now, if we look at the past 5 days, you see that a widespread heavy rain, and the yellow is about 2.5 inches. The red is as much as 6 inches. And when we talk about runoff into rivers, it's very important to keep in mind the difference between point values and basin values. Point values are maybe at one community, you might get 6 or 8 inches of rain. But for the potential for flooding, it's much more important to look at basin type scale precipitation. If you look closely here, you're going to see that I have the river basins. These are the major ones. We have the Missouri River Basin and the Mississippi, Illinois over here. But if you look at the area of yellow, you can see how widespread that is over parts of these basins. So it's a fairly widespread rainfall of 3 inches or more over Iowa that is coming downstream along the Mississippi. And then we also have that area in Nebraska, southwest Iowa, northern Missouri that's working into the Missouri River tributaries and will be coming down the Missouri River. So it's been a fairly widespread and heavy rain on the reaches of the river that are indicated in these areas in yellow and red. Now, getting a little bit closer here, in the past 24 hours, the excess of rain has shifted more into Kansas. You can see that area of yellow there, scattered parts of Oklahoma. Really, it wasn't quite as widespread over the last 24 hours, and that might be some sign that the flooding might not be quite as bad as it looked at yesterday, especially over northern parts of Missouri, southern Iowa. We really didn't have that much rain over the last 24 hours, but still there was some significant rain over parts of the Missouri River drainage that might be enhancing inflows into that region. So when we look at the potential for rainfall, now shifting from past to future, I wanted to point out that we have a lot of ingredients in place for heavy rain. Now keep in mind, some of the things that we need moisture in place, and we need something to lift that moisture, such as instability or upper support or a combination. I wanted to show precipitable water. In Blue Water Outlook, I use this a lot. It's the total amount of water in the column of the atmosphere. So in other words, all the way from the Earth's surface way up, we have high amounts of moisture, and that's that area of dark green. 1.7 is in the 80th percentile for this time of year over most of this area. So it's saying that there's unusually high amounts of moisture. So if we'd have enough upper dynamics or upper support to lift this moisture, we'd get very heavy rain. Also wanted to show from the moisture channel satellite picture these areas shaded in white right here, and especially areas in blue are indicating high, mid, and upper level moisture values. Down here it's dry, and generally speaking, and this is sort of a general rule of thumb, when you have that dry air at mid and high level, so in other words, most of Oklahoma, you have the possibility of severe storms. When you have that mid and high level atmospheric moisture, you have a better chance for heavy rain. So right now it looks like that mid and high level moisture is over eastern Kansas and much of Missouri, still over Iowa and Illinois. That's why we're expecting heavy rain over parts of those areas. So I mentioned the upper support aloft. I don't want to get into this too much, but I did want to point out this is the upper jet stream sort of dipping down in this area here, lifting up towards the north. And what we have here, the green, is what we call vorticity or lift. And with this strong jet stream lifting up here, pulling in that vorticity or lift, that's another ingredient for both severe weather and also the possibility of heavy rain. I wanted to also show here today, if you're in this region here, we have a moderate risk of severe weather. So if you're in Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, keep alert for that. Okay, so let's get into the forecast for rainfall. This is day one. This would be on Thursday, and it's somewhat toned down. The amounts of heaviest rain is 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, right there around the Kansas City area. This is generally a bit less than we've seen over the last 2 or 3 days. And again, that might be significant. I think what's another significant point here is look over southeast Iowa and northeast Missouri. That's in the Mississippi River drainage, the Des Moines River, the Iowa River, parts of the Cedar River, and that's about 1 inch of rain. That's going to be not quite enough to really bring a whole lot of more moisture down or water down the river from that area. So it's a little bit less in that area, and that's good for bringing heavier rain down the Mississippi. Now, if we go out on day 2 forecast, this is for Friday, tomorrow, you can see the rain really picks up over the southwest part of Missouri. We have 3, 4 inches, 5 inches, and I see some localized 6 inches are forecast in that region. A couple points here, though, to keep in mind. This is the rain that's coming down the Mississippi and Illinois. It's much lighter in this area. I've outlined in white. That's very key. If this turns out, and of course, when we're talking about rainfall forecasts, there's a lot of ifs here. If it turns out that it's lighter in the Mississippi and Illinois River drainage, that would again be positive for perhaps not as extensive flooding in the Mississippi. Also keep in mind that a lot of this heaviest rain, or at least some of it, is outside the Missouri River drainage, might not even make it into that. So this is the forecast for Friday. This is the combination of both past and future. When we make a river forecast, we have to look at past rainfall. We have certainty on that, and then we have to look at future rainfall. So past is on the left, future is on the right, and we put those two together to come up with a river forecast. So right now, another ingredient, this is from the USGS streamflow. Blue and black dots are river locations that are either at very high flow or flood flow. And what we have are, we started out with rivers very high from past flooding. So with additional rain getting into the rivers, they don't have to go as far to get into flood stage. So that's a vulnerability that has been existing over Iowa, over parts of Missouri, Illinois, parts of southeast Nebraska. So we started off with high rivers. So when we talk about the river forecast, we talk about moderate flooding, which is red here, major flooding, which is purple. And those are the areas I really want you to focus on, because those are when we get into secondary roads becoming inundated, or perhaps structures becoming inundated. Keep in mind the red and purple. And right now, with the next 24 hours of rainfall in the river forecast, and that's just the methodology that's used because we have a higher confidence in the next 24 hours, this is the result. And the most significant flooding is along the Mississippi River from around roughly just north of Burlington to just north of St. Louis. That's that area in purple. Areas in red are expecting moderate flooding. This will likely change over the next couple days as we get more accurate rainfall forecasts and we measure how much rain is on the ground. Now, we also the Weather Service runs a contingency forecast, and this is putting in all 72 hours of rainfall from an ensemble of models. It hasn't really been adjusted. It's to be used with a lot of caution here. It does give you the impact if that rain would pick up in that area in Illinois, and it could be more significant. We could have more major flooding all the way down to St. Louis and along parts of the Illinois River. Right now, I wouldn't necessarily think this is a done deal. I think we're going to have to keep an eye on that rainfall forecast, and especially if it's a bit lighter over Illinois, that, like I said, would be maybe more positive for not getting quite as extensive flooding in that area. Same thing for the Missouri River drainage basin area. You can see that the tributaries feeding into the Missouri over northern Missouri are forecast to possibly get into major flood. Missouri itself, moderate or major flood. Again, this is that 72-hour forecast. Just sort of keep an eye on this. We have a number of days to really fine-tune this forecast. So the takeaway point, significant flooding is still likely along parts of the Illinois, Mississippi, and Missouri River drainages and their tributaries. The Mississippi and the Missouri tributaries over northern Missouri are the most likely areas to be impacted, and changes to the rainfall forecast are highly likely and they will impact river forecast. I want to remind you, for official information and specific numbers, refer to National Weather Service forecasts and warnings. Finally, if you'd like to sign up for notices for future briefings, I probably will be updating these every day or maybe twice a day depending on changing situations. You can sign up at bluewateroutlook.com/flood-briefing. I thank you for listening to today's briefing. I will be updating this again either later tonight if things change or first thing Friday morning. Thank you.